We welcome you to another BYU Library Family History Virtual Sunday class. Our class today is presented by Jerroleen Sorensen, and the title is, How Do I Use the Step-by-Step Wiki Page for Researching United States Ancestors? We would like to thank Sister Sorensen for preparing and teaching this class, and will now turn the time over to her.
Thank you. All right. I'm so grateful to be able to work with you today on this amazing program that has started in Family Search. Right now, as far as I know, it's just for the United States, but hopefully they'll expand this to other countries. So the question is, how do I use the step-by-step wiki page for US research? And this is a fairly new thing that they put into the wiki, and it's one of the nicest things that I think they've done for a while. So I'm excited to be able to share it with you. Today, I'm going to look at it from a perspective of genealogical research. And so the first thing I wanted to point out was the 5 keys for genealogical research. There are basically 5 things that we do in genealogy to be able to be successful. And they are gather, choose, find, evaluate, and share. So as we go through today, through the steps, I'm going to kind of relate those steps that we're going to do to some of these keys to research. I have a video on YouTube and on our website here that is called Using the Wiki for Success with the 5 Keys for Research. I can't remember the exact title, but it's the same basic thing, only instead of just this 5 step-by-step, I talk about how to use the wiki to get successful research done. So before we start, I just want to do a little bit of quick reminders about the Research Wiki. The Family Search Research Wiki is found on Family Search. It is, in my estimation, it's probably the best tool for research online that you can find. There are lots and lots of articles right now. That is an old number. Right now, there are over 101,000 articles on the Research Wiki, excuse me. So what is the Research Wiki? It's free, it's online, it's on Family Search, and people who use Family Search and people who are hired by Family Search put articles in about genealogical topics. They usually are associated with countries or states or whatever, but not necessarily. There are a lot of topics that have to do with how to do research, how to find resources, all kinds of different things. So I suggest that if you want a basic Research Wiki instruction, I also have a basic, 2 basic research videos about the Research Wiki that you can watch, and it's right there. The first one is right down there on the bottom of the page. So how do you get to the Research Wiki? Just for your information, in case you've never been there, you go to the Family Search homepage, you click on search, you go down to where it says Research Wiki and click on that. When you click on that, you'll come up to the Research Wiki page. And I will show that to you briefly. You can then type in here, search by place or topic. And then if it doesn't come up exactly what you're looking for, change the parameters, and eventually you may find what you're looking for. You can also create a bookmark on your browser toolbar, so you can go to the wiki with 1 click so that it's always available to you. So once you get to the wiki, if you search for a state, now we're talking about United States research today, so I'm just going to talk about that. But if you search for the state by name from the United States page, you can also click on these links down here that you can see. And you'll come up with a page that says United States genealogy or West Virginia genealogy or whatever. And there's a ton of information on those pages. You will be amazed at what you can find on those state pages, particularly. When you go down there, however, when you get to the state page, you will find what we're talking about here today, the step-by-step research. They have usually 2 at this point. They have one for earlier research, 1850 to 1910, and one for 1880 to the present. I'm not aware, but I suspect they're probably going to do step-by-step for earlier than 1850 as well. I would love that. Colonial research, as most of you who do colonial research know, is quite difficult in the United States because of the fact that it was sort of wild and woolly until around 1820 or so. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to do unless you know what you're doing. However, let me tell you, on each United States page, there is a colonial research, generally a colonial research if it was a colonial state. You'll find colonial research on their state pages. And also on the United States page, there's a colonial research link that takes you to colonial how-tos and places where you can go to find colonial documents. Okay, so just don't be in despair. Now, the one thing I will say here about step-by-step is even in the colonial period, these step-by-steps will be useful to you as far as the steps go. It won't talk about the actual resources, of course, because it's just about these particular years. But I always counsel people, go to the step-by-step page and go through the steps for colonial research as though you were doing it just normally, like you would for 1850, 1910. Do the steps themselves. So the steps themselves are just as valuable as the tips and hints and things like that you get on the page, because they will take you through, and usually the steps will not, they really wouldn't change all that much from year to year. Okay. The other way you can find this is by going to the category. So on the Research Wiki, you can search by category and it will give you a list of everything that's in that category. So you can type category step-by-step state research and then click on whichever state you're looking for. Okay, now when you get to the step-by-step page by doing either of those things, you're going to see this box. And these are the steps, okay? Even if you never go down, like I said, to the bottom of the page and go at to the resources and things, this is a huge wonderful resource because it gives you where to start. Okay, where to start and then where to go after each different thing that you look for. If you started, for example, at the printed local histories or biographies, you might not find anything at all. Whereas if you start with contacting your living relatives and finding all the information that you may have available to yourself through people that you know and through your own resources that you have around your house, wow, you might already have enormous amounts of information. So it just depends where you start, a lot of times what you find. Okay, so I really strongly suggest following these steps exactly. These are the steps. So the step one for the key is gather. So what we do under gather is we gather all the information that is easily available, the low-hanging fruit that we already may have in our home, in our, in our relatives' homes, in our grandma's home. So find out everything possible from living relatives and their family records. And the page itself, as you see on the right, it says gives tips about gathering information. So it tells you where to look, where to go to gather things. So once you've gathered a lot of information, you will then review that information. Look at what you have, pinpoint the accurate facts, get rid of things that you think are probably just family legends, like that you have an Indian princess in your family line. That's generally always not true. Well, I wouldn't say it's always not true, but it's generally always not true, especially if she's a Cherokee. Pinpoint accurate facts when possible and note suspicious items. Okay, that's what I'm talking about there. Decide who you want to look for. Who are you most interested in? Do not start with an ancestor who lived and was born in 1779. Okay, please start with the closest person to you that you do not have a lot of information on, or that you may want to find, but like your great-grandparent instead of your great-great-great-great-grandparent. Okay, so start with the person who is closest to you that you need to find more information about. Get all the information you can find with what you just gathered for that person, and then decide what information you need. Okay, so try really hard to make this as logical as possible. The thing you do then is you craft your research goal. You choose, what am I looking for and who am I looking for that information for? So these are just some examples. I want to find military record of my great-grandfather in World War I, or what is the exact date of birth of my great-grandmother, and so on, that type of thing, okay? So step number 2 then on the step-by-step page is find ancestors in every possible census record. So you've already done your choosing, you've already done your gathering. So now we're going to start looking for the records. So find the ancestors first in the census record. And when there are census records available, starting in 1790, actually in the United States, but those are not super helpful till we get to 1840, 1850. But that's why they started in 1850, because that's when you really get some really good censuses. Look for your censuses when they're available. And they're all online in the United States. They are very easy to find and very easy to use. So what this does is it gives you search tips and links to all the censuses for that particular state in Family Search and Ancestry. And they also give you, there are a lot of state censuses available starting about this time in certain states. So if they do have a state census, they will give you the link to that as well. So this is part of your find, okay? So now we're finding. This is finding the records. Now, one thing I will tell you, when you find, make sure that you're doing your finding in an organized way. So I suggest using census grids. I suggest using timeline grids. I suggest using research logs. All those things you can find and are available on the Research Wiki to use as templates, okay? So get yourself organized right away. And the minute you start gathering, start gathering and organizing, putting your information into an organized way. I have lots of people who come in to see me and they have piles and piles of paper, and trying to find anything is just a nightmare. So don't do that to yourself. Get yourself organized right away. So step 3, after you've used all the censuses, searched every census, searched all their names, made sure that you've looked at everything that you can find in the census for their family, for themselves. If you can't find them in a census, search in other censuses outside of the town that you think they might be in. Go in anywhere, use different spellings, try to find them as much as you can. This is for the 1910 and above, up to, of course, Social Security is for people who died after 1930, but try to find additional details in death certificates, Social Security if they died after 1930, obituary and cemetery records online. Okay, so this gives you a search tips and examples of death certificates, death and index entries, Social Security death and applications claims indexes, and cemetery records. It gives links to collections online for all of the above, links for where to write to get records, links for more information on the wiki. These are all specific to the state, okay? So all these things that they're doing, except for the Social Security, will be specific to the state. Step 4 then is you search for county birth and marriage records after you search death. Now you say, why do you search for the death records first? Well, why do you think? Think about it for a second and you might figure it out. It's because you look for things that are close to you first, okay? So closest in date to you is going to be the death records. And so that usually means that they're going to be easier to find than the birth records. Plus, death records will have parents on them oftentimes, especially in the United States. They will have parents. They will have signatures of the informant who could be a child. They have a lot of information about the person who died that you may not have already. So that's why we find death records first. They have lots of information that makes it easier to find your birth records, okay? And your marriage records too, because a lot of times they'll have the spouse's name as well. Okay, so first is death, then is birth and marriage. And you can kind of look for those concurrently. So the step-by-step page will give you vital records registration, when it actually began for the births, marriages, and deaths. The county pages have more information on that, so go to the county page for that information as well. It gives examples of birth and marriage indexes for the state. It gives links to the state birth and marriage indexes, links to the county indexes and listings, and then it gives links on how to find the records in the wiki. So there are articles that you can actually go and read about how to find these particular records in the state. All right. Then the next thing is searching military records. Now you know a lot more information about the person that you're looking for. You can start looking for the more esoteric types of records, okay? Those records will be available if they served in the military or if they got a pension from certain wars. So you'll be able to find certain things for widows and things and children who are dependent sometimes for pensioners who survived the war. You'll also be able to find deaths for people who were killed in wars. So it will give you examples of the draft cards. It will give you search tips and links to the draft cards and other state military records. This is just something that's not on there. That page is for if you have a person who served in the Civil War, go to the National Parks military site, and it's called Search for Soldiers, or you can just click on or search in Google the Civil War National Park Service, and they've got all the lists and all the battles and lots of information about the lists and the battles, so it's really good. If you want other wars, then see the wiki article that's on United States military records, and they will take you to those records there for the military records for the, say, the War of 1812 or something like that. Step 6, then you can go to church records. Okay, if you didn't find your birth records or anything in the military records that shows birth, look for the church records. It will give you examples of church records. It will give you links to the online church records for the state, and it will give you links to further information about how to find church records. So we're still doing the finding, and you're still making sure that your organization is really well done so that you can find these things again and not lose things. Next is online wills and probates. You will be amazed at how much information is in probate packets. So much information. So it will give you search tips and links to online wills and probate collections for the state you're looking in, and it gives links to further information about wills and things like that. Step 8 is immigration. We don't start with immigration. That is a really bad place to start as a general rule, because you're generally going to just spin your wheels for a while before you actually find out. Once you figure out where they were living, you can oftentimes figure out what port they came in. So that's one reason we don't start with immigration, because there were lots of places where people came in. And so then you're just looking through passenger list after passenger list and possibly not finding them. So this will give you examples of passenger lists and indexes. It gives you links to the state's immigration records, to the US immigration records, a lot of interesting things there. Gives you links to more information about immigration. Now, I tell people a lot of times, don't just think about immigration, people coming into the country. Think about people emigrating from one part of the United States to another. And most of the states will have immigration maps that will show you where people went from one place to another in the state or within the states. And if you look at those maps, you can follow the roads that people went on to move. If you're not finding them in the locality that you think, follow the roads where they would have moved from one place to another. And sometimes you can find information in the towns along the way. If they had to stop, for example, or somebody died in that town on the way. One of my ancestors died in Missouri on the way to Independence, but she did not die in Independence. She died on the way because she got sick and she died. So the information for her is not in Independence. Her death is actually recorded somewhere else. Then you can search land records. So once you find them in those records that you've been looking at, find their locality, exactly where they were, then you want to look in the land records and see where they actually lived and what if they owned land or not. A lot of people moved, say, to Oklahoma, for example, during the land dispersal. So there's a lot of information about that, but it's hard to find it unless you know a lot of exact information about the people that you're looking for. This page will give you links to the US and state land records and also more information about land records. Step 10 is then you can go to local histories and biography collections. Once you know where they were and where their land records were and whether or not they were established in the place, then you might find them in local histories. So it gives links to repositories for local histories, how to find the histories on Family Search, links to collections of local histories that are online, and gives links to more information. I suggest, as a pro tip, use the Internet Archive to find histories and biographies. If you don't find anything on, say, Family Search, or Ancestor has some collections of local histories and biographies, and others, MyHeritage, some of them do. If you don't find anything there, use the Internet Archive. I've found so many cool things about my family on the Internet Archive. And the Google State University Libraries card, I'm sorry, I didn't put a comment there. Google State University Libraries card catalogs. Okay, so Google is not really part of the state university thing. So use Google to find, for example, Virginia State University card catalog in their library. They have a lot of information about local histories and biographies about people that settled there over the course of a couple of centuries that we've been a country. Okay. You can also use Google Books. I neglected to put that there, but you can also use Google Books. That's a really good source of information as well for histories and biographies. Step 11, contact a local history or genealogical society. That is really amazing sometimes. We were driving through a little town in Nevada, and my husband loves to stop at their little museums. So we stopped at their little local town museum, and there was this huge collection of manuscript histories and journals and other things that they had in that little tiny place, that if your family came from there, that was like a gold mine of information for people that settled that area. So local historical and genealogical societies, once you get to this point where you know where they were and have a handle on where exactly to look, you can find so many things in local and historical genealogical society repositories. So that's really great. And a lot of these even smaller societies have websites. So they will give you links to some of those historical and genealogical societies there in the step-by-step page, okay? Step 12, then there's a lot of other family search tools that you can use. There's historical images, which a lot of people don't use, even though it's actually really good. It's just they think that all the things are online, and they actually are, but they're not always indexed and cataloged. So the historical images you can see here, these are image groups that have not been put into the catalog for family search yet. Migration records for Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is one of those ports where a lot of people came in. So if your family came into Philadelphia and you were looking for their migration records, you might not find it if you were looking in the catalog. But if you look in the historical images, the images that is under search, you think it might be pictures, but it's not. It's actually document images, okay? So they give you links to those, and then they give you links to state online genealogy records for other online records that might cover smaller groups like cultural groups and so on, things like that. Step 13 is then study the Research Wiki page for any county in the state. So go to the county pages and look in there. And you can see down there at the bottom, known beginning dates for major records for Kentucky and Jackson County. Each county has its own dates. They don't all start at the same time. So this county didn't even start recording birth dates for county birth dates until 1903. So if you're looking for a birth in Jackson County, Kansas before 1903, and you're looking for a civil record there in the county courthouse, not going to be there. So that's why we look for these county pages for a lot of other more detailed information about the county. It also gives you where to write to the county courthouse and a lot of other information that's really, really useful. Okay, so always use the county pages. Now, there are also city pages that for larger cities, like New York City has its own page, and they even have pages for some of the boroughs. So use city pages, use the county pages, go as small as you can in the wiki. Now, this is just a couple of last tips for doing better research when you're doing these step-by-step things, okay? For larger cities, click on the wiki page, like I just said, scan through the articles in the topic box for the US, the state you're researching in, and the county. And on the left here, that's the topic box there. There's a ton more information there. I just took a little clip of it. So under the beginning research strategies is always a good idea to check, even if you think you're an advanced researcher, click under the research strategies for the page, because it will take you to a page that gives you specific things for that state or specific things for the United States that will give you hints what to do, how to do, where to go. Okay, so then the record finder, that is a beautiful table of all the different kinds of records you might need and what specific vital information it will give you. So like if you want to do births, it will tell you, look here, here, and here for births, for example. And if you're having a hard time figuring out exactly where your person was born or married or died or whatever, what the origin of the family was, then you can go to Finding Town of Origin, and they usually have some pretty good suggestions about how to do that. But you can see there's all kinds of records on there. So never, on these record types, never discount a possible source type. Never say, oh, they won't be in there, because you can never tell. You can never tell. And like I have there, it only takes a minute to win it. You go to the article, you read through the article, and you look on a few links and see what you can find. And you may actually come up with what you're looking for. So I call it scorched earth. Use a scorched earth policy when you are researching. Don't give up. Just keep going until you've done everything you possibly can. And then you can possibly say, okay, well, I'll come back to this in a year and see if there's anything new online. And then the last pro tip I have for you is start at whatever known location you think you might have, and then find everything you can there. If there's nothing there, then move out in circles. Go out in circles 5 to 10 miles at a time. So look at the closest town that's to that town, then to the next town that's closer, next town, in a circle, kind of like a spiral. So you kind of go in a spiral 5 to 10 miles at a time to the different cities and towns that were there, and see what you can find in every location. Even go into the next states, the next state, and the next state. Okay, so it can take time. It can take actually a lot of time. But in the United States, if you really want to do the research right, you really have to do that, because people in the United States starting from 1620 were extremely migrant. They moved a lot. And so you can't expect to find them in the same town from one decade to the next. People often, and I wouldn't say always, of course, but they often moved a lot. Okay, and then again, use your state page, but the one I'm talking about for you to use is the research strategies on this particular pro tip. Your research strategies will give you a whole bunch of tips, but at the bottom, this is the important thing that I want to stress right here. There are lots of great tools on those research pages, so do you use the research strategies. But at the very bottom of the page is a new thing called state research collections. And you can't find it. It's very difficult to find if you don't go to the research tips and strategies. So go to the research strategies, go all the way to the bottom of the page where it says further whatever state research. Click on the state record collections there. The Arizona Online Genealogy Records is also good, but click on Arizona or Utah or whatever state record collections at Family Search, and this is what you will find. This amazing one-stop shopping page to search all the state collections that are on Family Search. This is the page that you will use for every collection for that state that is on Family Search. It gives you the Learning Center, so you can go to the Learning Center and you can watch videos about how to research the state and other important things that are going to help you do better research in the state. It will take you to the historical records page, which again, don't use this unless you know what collection you're searching for, but there you go. You see all the collections, so you can go to that page with the collection that you want, instead of having to do that scattershot historical records thing that we always do, that we really usually don't find anything from. They've got the collections for you, so you can just do it without having to worry about coming up with a million different things. It's got the genealogies, which for the United States can be actually quite useful. I would always suggest just using it as a first, it's kind of a first scattershot thing. Don't worry about it too much, but it just kind of might give you some hints of where to look, because it can give you some locations sometimes. If you like doing indexing, it will give you indexing projects that have to do with that state. And then at the bottom, you can see the image only historical records. And then at the very bottom, it gives you how to do the catalog. So there you go. That is just a miraculous thing in my mind. I love it, and I suggest everybody use it. It's just amazing. Key 3 is organize. I just want to give you a couple of tips about how to organize your information as you're finding it. Use the research tools of the wiki. These are some articles you can find. Appropriate forms, prepare a research log. Research logs by the National Institute of Genealogy, which is really great. And then there's a little to-do list for my Ancestor there. There's all kinds of other things. Just look up on the Research Wiki, look up research tools. I also did a video on just using the Research Wiki to find research tools, so you can look up that as well. And then evaluate your information that you found by using your step-by-step page and using your collections page. Review your records, view the original documents and images whenever you can, snip them and save. You can always take pictures from your computer and put them in your files. Decide what the information tells you. Does it tell you what you really wanted to know? Is it telling you something different than you expected? And if it's telling you something different than you expected, is it correct? So then that's why you're going to compare it. So as you organize your information, compare it, and then come to a conclusion. Did you answer the question that you were actually looking to answer? And if not, then maybe you need to go back and do some more finding. And then this is a really important key that a lot of people neglect to do. And I would say, please don't neglect it, because we all need it. Share, okay? Create a new profile page if you found somebody new. Update your profile pages, especially on Family Tree. If you have an ancestry tree, put your information from your ancestry tree into Family Tree so other people can find it and they don't have to do the same painstaking type of research that you're doing. And then leave a note saying important research has been done in this person. Do not change anything unless you check with the sources. Create a memory. If you found some good, cool things to put on as a memory, you can write a blog. If you're a researcher who likes to write blogs, write a blog. You can use social media, just share stuff on Facebook or whatever, but do share. It's really important, I think, to share with other people so that they can love your ancestor as much as you do. So then after you've done the 5 steps for that person or family, then do it again. Find another ancestor, do it for everybody. Go backwards, step by step by step. Don't start with the farthest people. Go back and back and back until you get to the point where you can't go back anymore. And sometimes that happens. Depends on your ancestor. And if it does happen, we call those brick walls. I personally don't think they're brick walls, because you can climb over a brick wall. So it may be that you don't really have a brick wall at all, especially if you use the step by step. So find all your ancestors, use the step-by-steps, and just have a great time doing your research. Enjoy it, have fun. Don't get frustrated. Just enjoy following the steps and finding all the information. It's always interesting, no matter, even if you don't find the answer to what you're looking for. So thank you very much. And I hope that this is useful for you.